Well, recent statistics released by the NYPD show that crime is down in the city, but public opinion seems to disagree. Now, as New Yorkers prepare to head to the ballot box to pick their next mayor, public safety undoubtedly will be top of mind. So where does each candidate stand? Let's bring in CBS News law enforcement contributor and former deputy commissioner with the NYPD, Richard Esposito, and our good friend. I need to add that to the title. Richard, good to have you here. Perception and reality obviously are always two very different things. So let me ask you, while there may be a proposed negative view on public safety in the city right now, and it seems like it's been that way for quite some time, what's the actual crime rate like now? And is it something Mayor Adams can run on by saying the city is so much safer now?
You know, there's always that difference, perception and reality. Crime is historically low, although in the last 2 months, interestingly, some of the major crime categories have gone up. There's been more shooting victims in the last 2 months as of last week. There's been a few more murders. There's been a great many more rapes. And so there's some violence that isn't just perception, it's real. And the long-term trend is down, and it is fair for Adams to take credit for some of that decrease. Remember, it's an historical one that goes all the way back to the 90s, and it's just been nicely down. And they've done a good job of keeping it down overall. So is it fair for him to run that way? Sure.
You think it's safe to say, you know, like when you talk about when crime rates used to be so much higher, there wasn't such a proliferation of media, social media and things of that nature where people could be inundated with even if there's one story, if it's out there on multiple platforms, it's the only thing you hear. It's different now than it was back then. And that probably has something to do with it as well.
With the perception, for sure. Yeah, absolutely. If you think back, it's more than 2 decades ago. There were, major news networks, and that was it. You did not have the spread of information so rapidly. So whether it's a shooting or a burglary or a mugging, you see it everywhere all the time, and that does definitely impact on how people perceive their safety.
And not to bring movies into it or make light of it, but I always tell people, go back and watch a movie like Paul Newman's Fort Apache, the Bronx, back in the 70s. You want to see crime, you want to see things that are bad. Go back that far. So let me ask you this back to on a serious note. New Yorkers have voiced obviously concerns about taking the subway due to the mental health incidents happening down there, which seem to get reported on obviously numerous times. Democratic nominee Zohran Mamdani has faced criticism for his approach to handling that. This is some of what he told Marsha Kramer about his approach to the problem. Let's listen to this real quick.
These are not incidents that might necessarily be categorized in CompStat or as a crime, but they are moments that showcase a mental health crisis, a homelessness crisis, and we have asked police officers to be the ones responsible and to respond to that. So our vision for a Department of Community Safety, the DCS, is that we would have teams of dedicated mental health outreach workers that we deploy to the 100 stations with the highest levels of mental health crises to respond to those incidents and get those New Yorkers out of the subway system and to the services that they actually need.
So let me ask you this, your thoughts on that plan, and is it realistic?
It's not new, and he makes it sound new. The police department has in the past had public health professionals go out into the subway. And in fact, his favorite mayor, Bill de Blasio, actually asked the police department to take the nurses that they had in the system away. Kind of interesting how history comes back around. So it's a good plan. It's not a new plan. And the question is, no one so far has ever been able to get the police out of this and get it in the hands of mental health professionals. No one has really dealt with the underlying issue. So it would be nice if he were mayor, if he could do it.
Yeah, it just seems, as you mentioned, there has been talk of like this mental health task force to go out there and kind of police the mental health problem. It doesn't seem to have ever really taken hold. So Andrew Cuomo, he's been running as a pro-police candidate. He said that he wants more police on the streets while restoring trust within communities, but he's been criticized for his approach to policing in the past. Is the former governor positioned well to work with the NYPD, or does he need to regain some of their trust?
No, I think that's a really good question. So Mamdani wanted to defund the police, wanted to empty the jails to some degree, wanted to not prosecute misdemeanor crimes. Curtis Sliwa faked many of his heroics. It's been well reported. Andrew Cuomo did 2 things that upset police. his selections for the parole board that let people out of jail who were cop killers, and his stance on raise the age, increasing the age at which you're prosecuted as an adult. Those did not cause police to lose faith in him as someone in the criminal justice system and someone who knows how to work in it. It caused them to not support him because those are just two political points of view that they will not accept. So you haven't seen the unions behind him. But I would say of the three, he is the most knowledgeable on this.
You mentioned Curtis Sliwa. You know, obviously he has led the Guardian Angels for decades through the subway systems and whatnot. Wants to reinstate the NYPD Homeless Outreach Unit. What is that unit? And is that something that people might look favorably upon?
You know, I'm sort of going back into history here.
Yeah, no, I know.
Sorry about that.
Yeah.
But look, a homeless outreach unit, it's a good thing. And the police department is constantly stuck in this rubber band of, if you do the outreach, then what do you do with the people? If you take people off the subway, you get to have to prove with your camera that the person was in fact interfering with other passengers before you remove them from the subway. And if they don't meet that criteria, all that's going to happen is you're going to take them downtown and they're going to be released, and you're going to do a lot of paperwork. So it's become a catch-22 might be a good way to put it, where you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. So they'd like to get you off the subway and make the subway cleaner and safer, but they better have an enormous level of proof to satisfy a prosecutor in Manhattan specifically, that that person was interfering with your comfort, as opposed to, wait a minute, when you get on the train and they were already there, that kind of interferes with my comfort.
Yeah, again, catch-22 is probably the best way to describe it as we kind of spell it all out. CBS News law enforcement and contributor Richard Esposito. Thanks, Rich. Good to talk to you once again.
Great to see you.
We'll talk soon. For all our conversations with Richard about public safety, head to our website, cbsnewyork.com.